Okay, so now that you've watched the color video, what I want us to do is make a choice on where you want to go with your work. You can choose from complementary colors, which are opposites on the color wheel. That's going to give you the most dramatic contrast because those are opposites. Just like black and white are contrasts or opposites, so are green and red, or violet and yellow, or blue and orange. And those are going to be the most dramatic contrast. You could do your triactic, I think is how you say it. That's one word that I'm not very good with. Depending on how you split that up, you could also do an analogous. An analogous is going to be the most muted, where it's those 3 colors or 4 colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel. That's going to be your most unified and softest. A lot of times people call that like an ombre, but we call it a gradation. So or analogous, those are the colors that you have. I'm gonna put this off to the side for a minute. What I want you to do when you make a decision is I want you to figure out a way to communicate that to me somewhere on the back of your work. This one I'm going to choose to do blue and orange. I am not going to use marker on the back side of my work, even though that's my plan on the front side. Maybe I want to grab my pencil, which I can't find at the time, and I am going to write blue and orange. Oops, orange, if I could spell. And then I'm gonna write complementary. All right, so I have my colors, the color scheme that I'm gonna use, and now I'm gonna work on coloring that in. Now, if you remember from back in the day when you've been working with me before, we always talk about mowing the lawn. What that means is you're gonna go around the outside of a shape and then color it in. But here's the tip that I really have never told you, because it's just something that I've always done. Whenever I color in something, what I like to do, especially if I want to really stay in the line, I like to use little sheets of paper to guide me and keep me in the space. So I'm going to take this here. I'm putting it right directly against the line. And I can move it if I want to. I usually keep it in the same place, however it works best for you. So I'm going to outline that space, and then I'm going to mow that lawn. I'm going to go back and forth and back and forth. And my plan in my brain is to do these all blue and white, and these all orange and white. So these will be blue and white, orange and white, orange and white. If you are having a hard time keeping track of what goes where, I would recommend giving yourself a little mark. So this is blue, this is white, which means this is blue. That's white. This is white, this is blue, that's white. Blue, white, blue, that'll be white. That will also be white. So what I'm doing is giving myself a little bit of a guard and a guide in order to make sure that I don't make any mistakes. Now, the other thing, when you start to get to coloring, what I would strongly recommend is, instead of getting that stamped hand, you ever like been working and you end up getting marker all over your hand, and then you move it to a place that's supposed to be crispy and clean, and then you end up with a stamp of your hand? I like to use these little pieces of paper to keep me from stamping my work and getting my hands all messy and gross. If I miss a spot, I go back. I'm gonna outline the space first and continue to color in. So I'm gonna continue my work in all the other areas. And as a reminder, don't forget that marker lid goes on the other side. You don't wanna end up losing that lid and then you have a dried out marker. So I'm gonna go ahead and just move this one off to the side and snap and cap that marker. Make sure that you clean up as you go. And now let's talk about colored pencils. I actually like colored pencils better when I do this type of work. I feel like it gives me a lot more control and the ability to create a value scale. So from everything from a white to a dark. So if this is blue, it might be white all the way to like a dark blue. So as I'm choosing colors, I am going to choose this one, and I am going to use red and green on this one. And again, this one is complementary. I need to remember to make sure my teacher code and my name is on this, so it might be 5C. So when I choose my colors, I am not just going to stick to a regular red and a regular green like these two. Instead, I can use all the greens and all the reds that I have, which includes pink, anywhere from like a dark red to a light pink, anywhere from a dark green to the lightest green I have. Now here's the other trick that I like to use. I like to use yellow as my highlight or my lightest point. It can also be white, which you just leave the white of your page. Let me show you how I do that. So I'm gonna start with red, and I am going to try to make this feel like it's warping out of the page even more by adding value. Now I don't need this guard this time because my hand won't stamp. I can if I want to help me keep within the lines. So I'm going to start by creating red along the edge. I'm going to do it on this side as well. So what I want it to feel like is that there's a shadow on this edge where it's furthest away from the viewer. Now, when I color it in, I am going to start creating a mimicked line of this curve. So I'm going up. I like to start at the bottom and pull my line up because it starts to thin out as I go around. Notice I'm just using the same color the whole time, but when I do it, I'm making it so each of the lines kind of sits apart like a hair, so it separates, because eventually that top point is going to have the illusion of light, which makes it feel even more like it's coming out of the page. I turn this one and I do the same thing on the other side. Now this technique can be used if you do the handprint or the hand art. It can be used in even this if you want these edges to be your darkest point and this to be your lightest point. I would suggest if you're feeling like you want to try this, maybe before you start going in on your final paper, practice it in your sketchbook. So you just make a quick little sketch. Doesn't have to be perfect, and you're just practicing this technique. You can see that it's already starting to create the illusion of light. So then I slowly start to layer the lighter color on top of the darker color, which in this case is reds and pinks, but I bring that pink up towards the middle. So I keep working my way around, continuing that curve. Now here's where I use yellow. Now I could go through and maybe actually let me do darker points here. This is the darkest red I have. So I'm gonna bring that darkest red along the bottom over here to create even more of a shadow. The more of a variety of lights and darks that I use, the more it's going to look realistic and give that illusion of light and dark. So here's where I like to use yellow. I like to use yellow just a little bit as it gets closer and closer to white. Kind of get the point, right? If you feel like you've darkened a place too much, you can take your eraser. It doesn't have to be a perfect line. It actually looks better if it's not. Now I'm gonna just do a couple more stripes in here so you get the idea of how I could do greens as well. And I know that I was planning on doing just greens and reds, but I want you to see how other colors can be used in here as well. All right, so to review, use your color wheel. Figure out, are you gonna do complementary, triadic, or are you going to do analogous? Make sure that you mark that on the back. Tell me what colors you're using as well as what color scheme you're using. That helps me figure out, does this person actually know what they're doing, and have they watched their video, because I do assess and look at how well you're following the instructions. So once you choose that color scheme, you're then going to choose what material you want. Do you want more bright, bold color, or do you want to create value? So depending on what materials you use is what you're going to decide how to approach the artwork. If you're choosing to do colored pencil, remember to use values. So not only are you gonna have a red, but you have your value scale here. So I have my lightest pink or my lightest red, and I have my darkest reds. I'm thinking about the full entire scale. Even if I have like a big package of markers, I may have more than just one blue. So can I use a light blue, a dark blue, and a medium blue in the sets that I have? So think about value after I have marked and decided what markers or what tools I want to use, what colors I want to use, then I'm going to start my work. If you're using markers, Remember to use a guide if you have that available. Stay within your lines, outline it first, and then color in your space, because the thing that I know is that when you color, even if I color it in completely, you might be able to see those lines where they've darkened and buddied up and overlapped a lot, which does not look as neat. So please make sure that you're taking your time on that. Lastly, think about how you can use your colored pencils or your tools to create more of an illusion of space by adding shadows or darks and lights in the middle. Good luck with your work today. I can't wait to come around and check out and see what you're doing.